Women of Reddit, what are some obvious hints that you made to guys you were into that flew right over their heads? Completely undressed in front of him and undid my hair. Then proceeded to tell him I was taking a bath and I lit candles and shut the lights off. He followed me in, got my hopes up, and then sat fully clothed on the toilet talking to me about serial killers for 30 minutes. We should go for drinks sometime. Well, I don't really go to bars and you'd have to drive, so you couldn't come to mine for drinks. I could always stay over if you'd like. Maybe, my recliner chair's pretty comfy to sleep in. Eventually I just went for the "I've been flirting with you for months now, are you interested or not?" approach. He just didn't think for a second that it was mutual, so never noticed the hints. My now husband and I were childhood friends and we reconnected when I was in college. A few weeks into dating we were hanging out alone at his parents' house. Then this happened. Me, "I haven't seen your bedroom in a while." Him, "It hasn't changed." 8 years later, we still laugh about that one. I was at a party talking to a girl about 2 weeks ago. Everything was going great when sex casually got brought up, and she mentioned how I come really fast. It's like what I'm known for. Pretty clear sign, right? Well, obviously not. I said, "Girl, me too." We stopped talking pretty quick after that. When I was in high school, a girl from my class said I should come over and study in her bedroom with her. I was like, "Nah, I don't really care if I fail the math test anyways." Whoops. I also did fail the math test. Met a nice, interesting, funny boy at a bar, still living at home, relevant, and we talked for a good hour or two. He walked me to the train station, and it turns out I'd just missed the last train home. I said, "Gee, too bad you live with your parents. I could totally crash at your place." He said it's fine, and we headed back. He made me up the spare bed at the other end of the house and said goodnight. After a while I texted him saying I couldn't sleep. Did he want company? So we hung out in his room. He invited me into his bed, since I looked uncomfortable sitting next to it. We spent the night together in a single bed without a single thing happening. I'd only ever been with one guy, so I just figured I had no mojo. Turns out he was trying to be respectful, since he really liked me, and we ended up dating for 5 years. Chatting with him on FB every single day for 3 months. Inviting him to things. Giving him tickets to sports games. 3 months later he grabbed my hand to help me off a curb and I didn't let go. Suddenly he got it. 5 years later we are still together. I'm less subtle now. I'll just grab his. I'm a guy, but my biggest missed sign has got to be sophomore year of college. I was hanging out with this girl late night on a Friday one-on-one in a common area, and we're talking about trips we've taken around the globe. She mentions that she got a pair of Pikachu panties in Japan, and asks me if I wanted to see them. I said nah, that's pretty weird, and then left like 15 minutes later. I still look back on that moment and get flush with embarrassment. A long time ago I ran into my then extremely fit, extremely attractive neighbor one night, and we got into a conversation about how crappy our fridges were. After a few minutes she asked me if I wanted to come in and check out her fridge. I was like, dang, this lady really wants to talk about her fridge. I guess I'll be a good neighbor and listen for a while. I know. So, I went inside, and she proceeded to show me her fridge, while standing really close to me. I remember thinking, dang, this lady has no concept of personal space. I honestly thought she just wanted to talk about her fridge. For some reason it never dawned on me that no sane woman would ever invite a virtual stranger back to their apartment if they weren't interested in doing something fun and dirty, or murder. But she wasn't the type. Needless to say I left about 5 minutes after entering. Guy here. I was walking a friend home one evening and I mentioned to her that I'm quite oblivious about when a girl likes me. I said a girl could smack me on the head and I wouldn't realize she was into me. She then smacked me on the back of my head and I responded with "Ow, what the hell was that for?" The day my husband, then friend, went to tell me he was into me and wanted to officially start dating, he was super nervous. Since he prompted the date and discussion, I was going to let him start it off, and then I'd just be like yes, me too, while he was unable to communicate for about 10 minutes, and was skirting it due To being super nervous, I flat out told him, "You're not going to be rejected, just say it." I must have said it at least 3 times before I gave up and just kissed him. I'm a dude that has missed some obvious hints. The worst one was when I was in college. I was at a house party and a bunch of us were playing some drinking game with cards. If someone drew a certain card, then everyone had to ask the person to their left a question, and that person then had to ask a question to the person on their left. Whomever did not ask a question or answered the question posed to them lost and had to drink. There was this very attractive brunette sitting to my left. When it was my turn to ask her a question, I said, "Nice pants, wanna?" Note, this was not an actual attempt to get laid. I was drunk and thought it would be hilarious because most of the questions were pretty innocent. To everyone's surprise, she looked at me and said yes, then took a long drink of her beer. I did not have sex that night. I asked my current boyfriend out for coffee 12 times. He would always just respond with, "I don't like coffee much." And when I would invite him to get lunch or dinner, he'd always invite another of our mutual friends to join in because he thought I was inviting him as a friend. Jesus Christ, my boyfriend might be the most oblivious person I've ever met. But by far, my favorite moment was before we started dating. I'd already been flirting with him hard for months and he wasn't getting it. So on his birthday, I sent a very aggressively flirty text followed by the bikini emoji and oops, looks like I lost something. The whole conversation was dumb, but I thought it was obvious enough. Apparently it wasn't. Pretty sure he thought we were joking around, so instead of a steamy response, I got a lol nice one. I got frustrated and just said, "I'm sending you nudes now, happy birthday." He got so flustered. It was so cute that I couldn't be mad about my failed sexting attempt. I sat in front of the door and made him pick me up in order to leave, taking off my bra under my shirt every night we hung out with friends. Eventually I was straddling him in his bed and tickling him until he finally asked if I wanted him to kiss me. My current BF and I met through Tinder. The conversation had been going pretty well, so we decided to meet up at a bar for some drinks. A drink and some chips later, the bar was closing, so we walked around the car park and into the warehouse, pretty much the New Zealand version of Walmart. We ended up in the book section reading the steamy parts of romance novels to each other and having a good laugh. He then showed off his car and drove me back to where mine was parked. Despite all of my flirting, he didn't make a single move. I left feeling fairly disheartened. I texted him when I got home saying I got back safe, and he replied with, "I feel like I should have kissed you," to which I told him that's what I'd wanted. Fast forward a few days, I drove to his house with pizza, cuddled up with him to watch a movie, and just before I had to leave I decided that I had to make the move. Been together ever since, but I won't let him live it down. I'm shy and bad at making moves, so I bake them cookies and other sweets until the end of days. I had a girl recently find out that I live close to her. She said she should come over some night to play PS4 and grab a cup of tea in case it's not common slang, but said she wouldn't be free until around 11 PM. I told her it was alright, I only had one controller anyway. She hasn't talked to me as much since. Guy here. Went to a concert with an old friend and got drunk. She is from out of town and crashing in my guest room. We get home and she asks if I wanted to cuddle. I shrugged and said sure, why not. Lay in bed ready to fall asleep and she grabs my. In my head I was like, oh cuddle. Before my now wife and I started dating, she messaged me, "I want you." My response? Good to know. Lucky that it ended up working out. Very lucky. She invited me to her flat to hang out. So we hung out. After about an hour she said, "Do you want to leave?" I said no. Why? She said, "Because I brought you back here so we could, and you've been trying to make small talk for the last hour." Oh. And that's the story of how I lost my virginity at 21 years old. A girl once asked me to go to the mall with her and one of her friends. Later in the day she said her friend had to do family stuff and couldn't come, but she still wanted to go bra shopping and I could help her pick out a bra. I told her I don't know how to pick out bras, so she should wait till her friend can help her, and we didn't go to the mall. We hooked up later on at a party when she put her hand on my junk and said she'd like to see it while we were snuggled up in a hammock. Another girl who I ended up dating for a few years made her move at a house party I was having. She basically kept trying to sit on my lap or next to me, then stayed around after everyone left cause she wanted to watch TV. She found a porn parody on the movie network and put that on. We were pretty wasted, so I thought it was a joke. She then made comments about how she was getting turned on. I assumed she was probably blackout drunk and tried to put an end to what was going on by suggesting we go to bed. She, being ever persistent, said she'd cuddle me tonight and sleeps nude. By the time we got into bed she had had enough and said she wanted to me and that she was not too drunk. She wanted my. So yeah, I missed a bunch of signs, but I felt I had a legitimate reason to ignore them. My first boyfriend was like that with literally everything I did. I knew he liked me and I liked him, so I started dropping hints for 5 months before I finally just asked him out. I made plans for us to hang out together one-on-one, always flirted with him, even went as far as making sure I sat next to him on every school trip, high school, and laid my head on his shoulder and hugged him as much as I could. I even said to his face, I would date you in a heartbeat. When I asked him out he seemed surprised too. My husband now can be clueless sometimes too. Like I will walk out of the bedroom naked or in lingerie and he will just look at me, make a comment about me being sexy and teasing him, then go back to whatever he was doing, usually playing video games. I just have to tell him when I want sex lol. Quick edit since this got a lot of responses. Yes, I give my husband other signs I want to have sex. I'm not an idiot. I will kiss him, rub his back sensually, even straddle him, and show off what I'm wearing, if anything at all, and he will sometimes still think I'm just teasing and don't actually want to do anything. We have it worked out so that verbally communicating that consent is being given to go forward is the best method for us. I honestly just wanted to keep this kind of brief and thought it would be buried amongst all the other responses anyway. Sent a guy friend a picture of me in just a tank top, pulling the lower part of it down to cover my lady bits. Honestly a really sexy picture I thought. Also let him know I was bored and lonely. Nothing came from it. He told me a couple weeks later that he had a huge crush on me, but I had moved out of town. Posting for my wife, as she's not a Redditor. When we first met, I was still a smoker. She brought in cigarettes the next day. She's never smoked, to give herself an excuse to be around me. She wore the lowest cut top I've ever seen, and when we were alone together, she'd often say she really needed a massage. I went back to hers one evening to help her with her studies, and despite her changing to her underwear part way through, that's exactly what I did. It took me 2 weeks of this to finally click on. And man, are dense. Before I started dating my husband I went swimming at his apartment and asked to take a shower so I could rinse the chlorine out of my hair. Freshly dyed red, wanted to keep it nice. I asked him to untie my bikini top BC. I couldn't reach it, and he did. I let it fall and turned around to face him topless, and he had left me alone and shut the door behind him. He was a decent guy, I give him props for that. I went out with girl from work to a lounge. I was 19 at the time, and she was 22. She ordered an alcoholic drink. I commented on how I can't order one cause I'm not old enough. She asked me if I wanted to try some of hers, which I happily accepted. Instead of letting me sip from the cup, she takes a big swig, presses her lips against mine, and lets the liquor pour into my mouth. I thought it was so they won't see me drink. Then she did it one more time. Clearly I wasn't getting the hint, so she left it at that. I'm a dumb